Okay, so called to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, November the 26th. First order, are there any changes to the agenda? CO?
Yes, Your Worship. Administration would propose to add a brief in-camera item on intergovernmental relations.
Thank you. We'll add that item. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Hendricks.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, so as we get going tonight, I'd like to just make a quick brief statement that we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nations, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciate that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. Which brings us to the consent agenda. Tonight we have 4 items on the consent agenda. I move that Council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. The Special Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of November the 5th. The regular Council meeting minutes of November the 12th. Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of November the 19th. And item 12A, a letter from Todd Aasen, Director under the Act of Alberta Environment and Parks. It's about the lead in the water systems. I'm just going to leave it at that because it's a long thing. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. There are no items on the open forum tonight. There are no public hearings. We have no presentations. Therefore, it brings us to item 8A. An update on the Beaumont Sports and Recreation Center. I'd like to invite the representative of BR2 down to let us know how things are going.
Well, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity of coming out and giving you some good news and sharing with you the progress. I think it's going really well. I had the benefit of being away for a couple months and then coming back and having a chance to walk the site by myself last week, sort of unencumbered, and really get to see a lot of detail that's taken place. So how do we jump the slide there? So where we're at, it's into month 14th of a 22-month schedule. There's no indication now that it will go over schedule. There was some early indication they would come in under schedule, but we'll go with the 22 months for now. That puts us at 65% project billing, which has been complete, which is in line with our percentage of completion. We have spent approximately 35% of the $1 million contingency. And that includes additional items that the municipality wished to add to the project and some site utility work, etc. So I'm really pleased that at that stage of the project we've only exhausted 35% of the contingency. And we are now very close to completing the building envelope. There's a section of wall cladding to complete on the south face, north face of the arena, and some glazing to go in, but we're very close to being completely sealed on the envelope. Some of the asphalt got completed this fall. Our original schedule was we would want to see that done in the spring, but they had some good weather, so they did the first coat of the main drive aisles, but we recommended not proceeding with the rest of the asphalt. That would put the town at risk to accept that paving, and there really wasn't a need to do that, given that we've still got the amount of time left in the schedule to complete it in the spring. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to superimpose some of those early renderings with where we're at. So walking in the front door of the building, there's a lot of steel stud up. The majority of the concrete block is done. There's some minor concrete block work to do to clad columns, etc. A lot of the mechanical roughing has been complete. So that's walking in the front door. On your On your left there is the curved bulkhead of the reception desk, and the little rendering on the right is looking the opposite way from that image, but you can see how much work is done overhead. There's a lot of ductwork in place. So really coming along well. Directly in the front door, before we got to that curve, if you look on the little image there where the arrow's pointing, so that's the doors that lead to and from the arena directly off the entrance, and that window is the viewing in that lobby on the main floor into the rink. The reception desk is the curve. It's just starting on the right-hand side. So in the rink, a lot of work is done. You can see through that image of the picture where those are the lights coming through the tarps. That's the extent of the exterior wall to be completed. Roofing is well underway with first coat and insulation in most places. What they're doing there is that is a structural slab, and then there is an arena slab poured on top. That's the radon membrane going on now, and the preparation for the refrigerated ice slab. The bleachers are complete. Almost all the block work is done. On the very back wall, there's some steel columns which they're cladding. So that's in really good shape, the arena. Most of the change rooms are primed out now. All the rough-ins are done. The ceilings grid has been hung. We've got ductwork and sprinklers and piping done. So those are coming along really well. And this is the corridor looking towards the reception. Again, the block's been primed. We have the column details, which you can see the cement board there on the wall. On the left is storage rooms and that are off the gymnasium. And we'll go back. There we are. So that's the gymnasium. It's kind of the same image of the rendering on the right. It's concrete block up to the second floor level, and then it's steel stud and drywall for the top half. And the window on the right looks into one of the studios up above. The window directly ahead is open from the public lobby on the second floor, looking down into the gymnasium. And the doors at the bottom lead out into the lobby. So again, that space has really come a long ways. The field house, right now, they're just doing some more closure work to get more heat into that. They poured it off the change and bleacher on the left, but the framing, all the drywall framing is in there for the duct work. The track is all there. The guardrail is up for the track. And they're using this as a laid-out space. They've got a lot of mechanical equipment stored in there. And then looking, this is just coming in from the change. That was the change room walls and the bleachers up above, which are now behind some insulated tarps. This is not, it wasn't heated last week. They'll be putting heat to that now. And this is the upper lobby looking, on the left are the two concession areas. On the right would be the open to below. And you look straight down the hallway on the left is into the ice rink viewing. And you can just make out that window on the right, very far back, that looks down into the gymnasium. This is right, again, at the very back of that space. So again, we're just in the common area. Those on the left will be the large clear glass that separates warm viewing from cold viewing in the arena. The doors straight ahead are going to take us into one of those large studio rooms. And again, the window looking down into the gymnasium. So most of all that rough-in work is now all completed above the ceilings. And this is looking, again, you see the arrow, it's looking into the expansion of the fitness. Just make out the shape of the gray steel portal. That will be where the overhead door will swing open and open the space up with the fitness equipment. On the right, you can just see the window openings, which look over top of the spectators' seating in the running track. And this is a view looking from a viewing window up by the concession into the rink. So from that area of concession, you'll be able to see the spectators seating and also look down onto the rink itself. Again, you can see the block work is complete. The bleachers were all precast concrete. They're complete. The pipe railings are in place at the top. And continuing, there's piles of pipe rail and stair rail delivered on site to be installed, so that's coming along. And this is looking where we've got those tarps right now separating the field house from the main lobby area. You can see the railings in place separating the running track. Again, all the mechanical, roughing's complete, electrical's complete. And on the outside, the envelope is done except for where we've got those panels to proceed on the left. What will happen now is they told me they're going to concentrate on this front entrance to get that front entrance framed and the sloped mansard roof built. And then those little black marks are where the metal panels now have to be bolted in place, which carry the mansard panels. That's about the only thing for the steel people to come back. Now, when they get to that, I'm not sure. I think they're going to leave the exterior stone and stucco probably to the spring and concentrate on the interior after they get that piece done.
Yeah, well, they do actually have these stone on the outside all the way around the field house.
That's done?
Yeah, yeah. You just need to come around and do it on the front of the arena there. That's it.
That's where we're at.
That's it.
We'll put questions.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Yeah.
Council not too long ago actually had an opportunity to go for a tour.
Oh, good.
And the pictures that you showed us this evening don't do justice when you're standing in there. Like, it's actually quite massive and quite open in quite a long way. But yeah, it looks like we're in good shape. Open it up to questions and comments from members of council. Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, thank you, and thank you to the presenters. Question then on the our old workout center, which is being revised and reinvigorated. How are we doing with that?
Well, the wall's been opened up. Because the old workout center is actually lower on a floor elevation than the new. The wall has been opened up, and there's a new concrete ramp that will connect to that. It'll be you can actually stand in the new and look down on the old and vice versa. So that's been gutted. The ramp's in place. The stair connections have been done. The roof bracing is, all that shed roof is finished.
Yeah, we had to shut down for the pool there for a bit to reinforce those.
And we have in our base contract minor improvements, cleanups of the locker rooms.
Yeah.
And we're pricing as an option a total gut and refurbish of those two change rooms upstairs. Pricing, frankly, isn't coming in where we wanted it to be. So what we're trying to do is just take it up a little bit of a level from what we had originally in the documents, which was mostly paint.
And in addition, I think we're going to be finishing the downstairs change room as well, so they all tie into the rest of the new building. Let's have a simple look.
Sorry, anything further on the pool itself?
No, the mechanical system for the pool is that the main equipment is in the new expansion, but until we come very close to the end to do the actual cross connection of the ductwork, it'll just run the way it is.
So is it
In the pool area?
No, not in the
just the final connections.
Yeah, it's all the mechanical upgrade, electrical upgrade. The lobby of the pool is going to be all brand new on the lower level. But in the auditorium, no.
So, sorry, Councillor, do you mind? So we're not doing anything in the pool? Because I was in there on the weekend, and it's looking like it could use some love. There's a lot of rust coming down walls. There's a lot of metal that needs to be tidied up. We're not doing anything in the pool.
No,
we
purposely held off doing any, like going into the pool itself. Otherwise, so we're doing all the mechanical. Like the lobby is brand new. What were the multi-purpose rooms? Those are repurposed now as offices and child mind. But the pool area itself, well, the good news is we've only spent 35% of the contingency. If we do want to do things there,
I'll look to members of council for some support here. But yeah, I think it's worth having a look at the current state of that pool and seeing what we can do. Because I would hate to open up a brand new building and have rust streaks on the walls in the pool area.
Yeah, the north wall gets redone because we took out windows there, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes now the face of the gymnasium. So there's work on that wall. I don't think we called for repainting that auditorium other than that one surface in the lobby.
Can we do some investigation and find out?
Absolutely.
Please.
Yep.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. That's great to see. I'm glad to see we're getting such good progress, and appreciate you keeping us up to speed on it. Completion, so we're done 14 months of a 22-month construction schedule, so that leaves us 8 months. 8 months from now would be the end of July 2020. Is that the projected date for completion?
Yeah, Clark was working to have it done sooner. We're just right now saying the contract says that's the date for substantial. There'll be no rewards for getting there early. If they want to get there early, they can get there early, but they're not forecasting to be late.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from members of council? No. Awesome. It was great to see you tonight. Appreciate you coming in. And
I think it's coming really well. I think it's going to just be a great looking, looking facility.
I think it's
How long has it since you've been in there?
I was in there last weekend on Sunday.
Okay.
I think in the main pool area. Took my kids for a swim. So
yeah, good to, as that painting gets done, probably in the next couple of weeks, to see it when all those walls have a coat of primer. It's going to be probably a good time to go have a peek.
Oh, the actual building?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about a month ago? A month and a half ago? Six weeks ago?
Lots happened. So 6 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's coming really well.
Yeah, excellent.
It's good.
Okay.
Thanks. All right. So that brings us to item 9A. Start on some bylaws. Bylaw 963-19, Emergency Management Bylaw, is here for first reading. Everett, go, please.
Excellent. Good evening, Your Worship, and thank you, and members of council. It's, as always, a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Administration is before you this evening seeking first reading to Bylaw 963-19, Beaumont's Emergency Management Bylaw. As you'll read in your package, in addition to the Municipal Government Act, there are two pieces of legislation that direct or dictate this municipality's emergency management program. One is the Emergency Management Act, which outlines and delegates emergency management roles and responsibilities for municipalities within the province. And now, a second piece of legislation, which is called the Local Authority Emergency Management Regulation, or LEMR for short, which was recently introduced and takes effect on January 1, 2020, that clarifies the roles and responsibilities for municipalities, which includes the creation of an advisory committee, the creation of an emergency management agency, this bylaw, our municipal emergency management plan, and of course the fact that a municipality must practice what we have trained on by conducting exercises on a regular basis to ensure that the City of Beaumont is able to deliver what is expected from our residents. Bylaw 963-19 has been created to meet these requirements and was based on a template provided to us by the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. I am pleased to announce that currently, in a little bit of background, that we do have in place a municipal emergency management plan, a MAP, if you will, which is reviewed by the province of Alberta representatives annually. Our next review is actually next week. As well as we do have an existing bylaw, which was drafted in 1994. However, given the new legislation, it was time to modify that bylaw. On a communications perspective, internally we are conducting training, as have members of council, and upon approval, third reading of this bylaw, we will start the process to engage all those identified within the bylaw, promoting this municipal emergency management plan also in the future to our residents. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you very much. So open up to questions from members of council. Councillor Hendricks.
Richard, thank you, and thank you to the presenter. I just have a question on the assets that council and community has purchased over the years for this very style and type of committee. Is there a bit of a list that you could share with council at some point, just outlining all the assets? We have emergency gen sets, draft pumps, all these other things that potentially would play into this role.
Okay, excellent. To Councillor Hendricks, through your worship. Unfortunately, I don't have such a list with me. However, off the top of my head this evening, we do have a room identified as Emergency Operations Center, now known as an Emergency Communications Center, which is located in the fire hall. We do have a backup generator for the facility, which in the event...
There's a ability just to back a system in, turn on dedicated circuits, and allow that to be used for overnight stays and what have you. And I believe this facility too also got the same style and type of arrangement put into it over time. Right. So anything you can just to provide us with just some background knowledge on what's all in play here would be great.
Okay, excellent. If I may, just a follow-up to all members of council. Part of this bylaw and a review process of our municipal emergency management plan is the city conducting a hazard risk vulnerability assessment. There is one planned in the next year which takes a look at the entire city of Beaumont and evaluates our risks here in the city and what is our greatest threat, what are our assets, and that would be the type of thing that we would be looking at and databasing, if you will.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Cook, for the update of the bylaw. It was due. 1994 seems like a long time ago. Just my questions around the advisory committee, and it looks to me from reading both bylaws that we've substantially increased the duties of that advisory committee, or at least we've articulated them more in the bylaw that you're presenting today. I wonder if you could elaborate on that and give us some more justification why we would need to have a committee on an ongoing basis. As just to give you a little bit more of that time to think about this, the agency, the way I understand it, is the staff who are day-to-day involved, and in the event of an emergency, they would have their assigned duties, part of the plan, etc. They're the experts in delivering that. An advisory committee, I don't know how often, it does say in here how often the meetings could be held. I'm just wondering if there's enough work for an advisory committee, or whether that would be something that council as a whole could deal with as needed. Just if you could elaborate on that, please.
Most certainly, to Councillor Barnhart, through your worship. With the creation of the Lemur, the roles and responsibilities of a municipality were made more clear. They have been there, but they've been very much more defined, if you will, with respect to what the municipality and council is responsible for. And the creation of the advisory committee outlines those responsibilities. In short, you're absolutely right. The work is done by the full-time administration and members of the city that are part of the second committee, of course. However, it is still council's responsibility to ensure that the municipality is prepared and doing what is necessary in the event we do have an emergency or a disaster, which would see us with displaced persons or disrupt business and business continuity and such.
If I could, just one follow-up. Do you anticipate there being frequent meetings, and can you justify for us or help us to understand why 2 members of council would be needed for this committee?
The 2 members of council was a recommendation or based off the template provided. That is at the determination of the committee. If you'd like to add more, that's the discretion of council and the Director of Emergency Management, the Deputy Director of Emergency Management, the CAO and Deputy CAO. That is completely up to council on who you feel needs to be on there. The intent behind, again, is to review what is in place. The frequency of that is up to the committee to do. And with the steps being taken with frequent reporting from our Director of Emergency Management, we may only meet once a year, perhaps twice a year. Again, discretion of the committee.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Niekerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. In reviewing for the bylaw tonight, just wanted to ask a process question from administration. Is there anything holding council back from proposing a second and third reading of this bylaw tonight? Does the bylaw after first have to go out for comment or back, or just some comment on process from administration, please?
Thank you to Councillor Van Niekerk, through your worship. No, there is no reason why we couldn't receive second and third reading this evening. Simply the ask for first reading was provided should the direction of council be that to add additional members beyond the 2 members of council, for example, onto the committee, or to make it smaller than 1 member, for example. We left that open for council's discretion. Again, is there any reason why we couldn't have second and third? No.
Okay. Thank you.
No, okay, sorry, I thought you were signaling. Seeing no further questions. I know there's been some talk sub-regionally about emergency management as sort of a joint thing between municipalities. Would this bylaw have any update or any bearing on that? Those talks, those discussions, and do we know where we're at with those yet?
Excellent. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, conversations are being had at the regional level with our neighboring municipalities with respect to creating an agency of our own with regards to emergency management. This bylaw is still a requirement for the City of Beaumont today as the new regulation comes into effect on January 1, 2020. Should the City of Beaumont in the future, and we're talking few years down the road, venture into a partnership with surrounding municipalities, a new bylaw would be presented and an agreement would be presented at that time.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you very much. Is there a member of council prepared to move first reading at this time? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Just a question on process, Your Worship. If we wish to move second and third reading tonight, would we indicate that now or following first reading?
Well, let's get through first reading, and then I will ask council if there's any appetite to move second and third reading, and we can go from there.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no qualms with approving this. I just would like to know if there's a budget that's set aside for this, and if that's covered, if we pass this right away, are we expecting to have any, I don't know, I would think the agency is already covered, but in terms of the committee, are there any additional expenses that need to be prepared for? Is this a 2020 begin, or we start right away?
To Councillor Barnhart, through Your Worship, this bylaw would take an effect right now. So in essence, yes, the committee would be launched right away once it was determined who was on the committee. However, with respect to budget, we do have an operating budget for disaster services within the city, which is intended for the maintenance of our emergency communications center located at the fire hall. We are fortunate as we do have internal instructors able to deliver some of the training that is required by our staff at no cost, staff's time to attend internally. And of course, some members of council were fortunate to have taken training through the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, which is also free of charge as well by the province of Alberta. No significant costs have been identified through the passing of this bylaw.
Seeing no further comments or questions, call the vote on first reading. And that carries unanimously. And there seems to be some appetite for second and third reading. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, call the vote for second reading. That carries unanimously. Okay, so if we're going to go for third reading, we need unanimous consent of council. So I will now ask for unanimous consent of council to proceed to third reading. All in favor of proceeding to third reading? That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council permitted to move third reading? Councillor Daniluk.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Councillor. Okay. Seeing none, all in favor of third reading? And that passes. Thank you very much.
Excellent. No, thank you.
Thank you.
I just don't want to leave.
No, that's fine. You can stay. I'm like, he's not getting up because he's up next, but I got to scroll back to the front of my agenda. Up next is Bylaw 937-19, smoke-free public places for second and third reading. Director of Protective Services.
Excellent. Thank you again, Your Worship, and members of council. Administration is back before you this evening seeking second and third reading on Bylaw 937-19, Beaumont Smoke-Free Public Places Bylaw. With the passing of Beaumont's Cannabis Consumption Bylaw in 2018, administration was directed to present to council a bylaw that aligns smoking tobacco with cannabis. On January 22nd, 2019, council gave first reading to this bylaw. When comparing the proposed bylaw with our existing smoke-free public places bylaw, currently smoking is only prohibited from public buildings, bus shelters, and workspaces. Outlined through that bylaw as well as provincial regulations, smoking is currently prohibited within 6 meters of a front door of a building, a window which opens, or an air intake of a building. The proposed bylaw would prohibit smoking from within a building, at an outdoor public event, a campground, on a patio, inside a public vehicle, on a playground, in an open space, in any park, a seasonal skating rink, skate park, sports field, or any trail within the city of Beaumont. This bylaw and these regulations, or pardon me, these areas were identified following the province and federal regulations that were designed to protect youth from the byproducts of smoking tobacco or smoke. Public engagement was completed earlier before first reading, which included advertising and an in-person engagement session seeking the public's input on the new smoking bylaw. Since first reading, administration has engaged the Chamber of Commerce this past summer. We've engaged an impacted business that was brought forward that deals in vaping products within the city of Beaumont, as well as we conducted an online survey which saw that 65% of residents agree with aligning the two bylaws, cannabis and smoking, while 78% of proponents agreed that the new bylaw should focus on the protection of youth in our community. This bylaw has received to the proposed bylaw is outside or a window or of a business currently providing that you would be able to smoke tobacco within the city of Beaumont. You still would be able to smoke tobacco or a temporary residence. Further to that, there was, as mentioned just a moment ago, concerns were raised with regards to a local business that may be impacted by this bylaw, as their primary source of business is the vaping products and the distribution of them. Working with this business owner, we have found a workable solution for the business so that the passing of this bylaw would have no impact on their business and they would be business as usual and the doors would remain open. Communications with respect to this bylaw upon approval would be notification, advertisement, updating signage throughout our community, and speaking with our communications department just as or late as this afternoon, we would be working on a campaign that would promote this throughout the city of Beaumont for our residents and businesses. With that, I look to council to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the hard work and effort that's gone into getting this to the point that it's at. And I'll open it up now for questions from members of council. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Thank you. Through your worship to administration, I just wanted to say thanks for the additional consultation that was completed on this. As it said in the package on March 12th, council deferred second reading of the bylaw and directed admin to go do some more public engagement with citizens and that business, and I'm happy to hear that that was successful. We've re-engaged, we've done another survey, and we've sought more response, and it sounds like the input didn't change people's views on where we're at tonight based upon what was received. So just like to acknowledge that we did 2 rounds of public engagement on this now, and thank you for that.
Pleasure. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's comments on the public engagement. It was prudent to do that, and the results are speaking for themselves in the report. My question is to Mr. Cook. My understanding is that if we do pass second and third reading this evening, the bylaw is effective immediately. Is that correct? Or is it at a future date?
It's identified within bylaw. It would take effect on third reading. On third reading,
yes. Okay. My only thoughts from perspective is I'm in favor of the bylaw. I know there'll be a communication piece telling our citizens about the bylaw, but I'm wondering, given the circumstances of it, if we could do this, I don't know if we can or not. I'm asking the question, administration is,
CEO
could the bylaw be...
So we'll let him have a go here.
I'm sorry?
The CEO wants to weigh in, so he'll answer.
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to build off of
if you don't mind. One, our communication people, the opportunity to educate our citizens that this is happening, but the survey results, only 60 people, is disappointing, but it was made available. People took advantage of it, they didn't. I'm just thinking, could there be a campaign saying, as of this date forward, the bylaws become effective. If council feels that's worthwhile, great. If council doesn't feel that's necessary, I'm happy to withdraw my suggestion. But I'm assuming, though, to do that, we'd have to the bylaw effective in the future to make that a proactive campaign as opposed to this has already happened, guys, just you need to be aware of it. I'm not saying what we're doing is wrong. I just think I would prefer, if we could, to give a 30 or 60-day window to allow our communications people to do a proper campaign of information for our citizens and avoiding discomfort for those who aren't really aware of this may be happening, perhaps.
If I could weigh in procedurally, then I would suggest you don't give it third reading. Once you give it third reading, the only thing preventing it from becoming law is a signature. If what you're suggesting is you're going out to, again, engage the public with the possibility that they have different suggestions, then the bylaw needs to be changed. If you vote at third, thing is we're going with a public education campaign, then that can be done whether the bylaw is approved or not. My hesitation is if you give it third reading and then delay the signature, you go out to the public and then the public provides you with other feedback. Well, you've already given it third reading. It's already passed.
If I could rephrase my suggestion then. I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to make this into a monkey wrench into our system. Not my intention at all. I'm just thinking that if the bylaw is effective now, upon third reading, which I'm happy to do tonight, I think it's a good bylaw, and I support the bylaw as presented, then citizens could be, if they're smoking on one of the walking paths and a bylaw officer decides to give them a ticket, they could get that right away, which is fine. That's how the bylaw is supposed to work. My only thoughts are not engaging the public for more consultation, more saying the bylaw is now effective. Please be advised that you cannot smoke in these areas. You could face a citation or a fine, or the bylaw will be effective January 1 and then the fines become effective. I know what I'm trying to ask the question here about. You know what I'm getting at?
You're asking, let me rephrase it.
I'm not sure
is there going to be a period of education and warnings before we go full out and enforce it?
Call it a grace period, perhaps, but again, I'm happy to pass a bylaw tonight personally with third reading, and it is what it is. I'm just thinking from a proactive campaign of information to our citizens as when they could get a fine. So if no one else has this concern, I'm happy to back away from it and go to second and third this evening.
Oh, sorry, I thought to Councillor Dowling, through your worship, the one thing I can assure you is municipal enforcement is aware of this bylaw, and depending on the receiving third reading tonight or not, they will be notified of the status of this bylaw either this evening or first thing in the morning. Our municipal enforcement department, and I believe all of council has heard this, we do our best to educate first and seek compliance through education, and I would suggest that with the new bylaw, that would be the direction that would go with the enforcement of this, and more of an educational campaign, if it was to be approved and in effect upon third reading and signature, of course. Hopefully that can satisfy.
Councillor,
Thank you.
Is this a separate?
you can continue on with the new question if you wish.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through Your
Or do
Worship.
you want to go back to this one? Hang on. Oh, before we switch topics.
Okay.
So you have a new topic. You want to weigh in? Weigh in. Okay. Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Monkoff-Swain, followed by Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was feeling the same way, Councillor Dan, like that. There's enough of a nuance there that I needed to ask the question. So let me see if this question might stimulate why perhaps we're asking for more education on this. When you started your presentation, you said that someone could be smoking 6 meters away from the entrance of a building in a parking lot, and that would be okay.
To Councillor Barnhart, through your worship today, yes.
I got that right. You did say that specifically. So
yes, I did.
So the difference is, in a designated public place, they cannot.
Today.
So if there was a sign up 6 meters away that said no smoking here, they couldn't.
If there's an area designated as a no smoking area, correct.
So are there going to be enough signs up that this is going to be clear to people? Because that's, to me, where some education would help. Because it's not black and white. It's not like you can't smoke anywhere but in your house. You can smoke 6 meters away from the door if there's no sign that says you can't.
To Councillor Barnhart, through your worship, correct. You are correct with that. The inclusions are more specifically those parks or green areas and such, of course. If council so chooses, more of an educational campaign or a roller date, that by all means we can do that.
For that reason, I think we need some clarification, and I would agree with Councillor Danlick. I'd rather be proactive than having people caught off guard by it.
And while I agree, I don't think us wanting that type of campaign precludes second and third reading tonight. I think we should, the administration's heard their concerns, we should be moving forward. Councillor Mungo-Swain.
Yeah, so thank you. The way I read this, the intent is in a public area, like if you're at one of our parks, you're at a baseball game, whatever, the answer is no. If you're at a restaurant and you want to go out for a smoke in between second and third period, as long as you're 6 meters away, that is technically a private parking lot. You can do that. So I get the intent and I support the intent. Where Councillor Danlick's going, I guess, why couldn't we amend the bylaw to say to come into effect January 1, 2020? So we still pass third reading. We're not looking for more feedback. It's an educational campaign just to come into effect so that we can provide. And I appreciate the education first piece. That'll be part of the education. That'll be part of the campaign. I just would be more comfortable with that approach.
CEO?
We can do that under force and effect. We can add a separate clause that says comes into effect on January 1st, 2020. Then we can start on the signatures.
Sounds like a compromise to me. Councillor Danlick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and great compromise suggestion. Thank you very much. I might offer another suggestion just to make the waters a little muddier for a moment. If we did pass the bylaw this evening in second, third reading as is, no amendments on dates, could the campaign of education be bylaw is effective, but council can determine that as of February 1, then any fines may be issued by public enforcement? I'm not like that idea. I'm just saying,
if you want council to have control, you need to put that clause into force and effect.
Well, I like the suggestion of the date
squarely
cleaner in some respects. I'm just asking the idea of not having people, because I have several friends who smoke and they walk their dog and have a smoke, and that's their way of winding down the day. They can't do that anymore. And I think some of them are aware of it, some of them aren't aware of it. So I'm just trying to make those people less uncomfortable. I still favor the bylaw, and I'm fine the way it is. I'm just trying to make some people's lives easier and less grief for our bylaw people and so on, and by giving some leeway with the enforcement possibly. If we can't do that, then I'm okay with the idea of suggesting a date change, and it'll be what it'll be.
You said you didn't want to muddy the waters. You definitely did. I just leave it as a date, if you're okay with that, and leave the enforcement up to the...
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Yeah, muddying for me. Just because I do think what the CIO did say, that if we are not clear that this is the way the bylaw has been written, we are going to open ourselves up to more people saying we don't like it that way. And then we're back in, I know we're not saying it's consultation, but to me it feels like we're not ready to say this is the bylaw. And so if we're not ready, we're going to perhaps have people who are walking their dog who want to have a smoke that are going to say, now I get it, because I'm hearing all this education and I don't like it. And then we're back to square one again. So for that reason, I would say if we're comfortable with this direction, I would vote for it to happen immediately and leave the discretion to your officers.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you, Your Worship. In either scenario that Councillor Barnhart put forward would be amicable for myself. I think the cleanest way to do it would be to, if an education campaign were warranted or requested by council, would be to add the January 1st date to allow. Third reading would be passed tonight, and it's done. And then there's an education campaign followed by enforcement. That's a clean way to do it. It's also clean to go ahead with third reading tonight and leave the education campaign in the hands of the officers who we know have a strong track record of working on an educational front with bylaw infractions. So, okay, either way for me. Thank you.
Councillor Mungo-Swain.
Just to reiterate my point, the messaging will be this bylaw has passed. It comes into effect here. We're informing you so that as of January 1, you can't smoke in these places, essentially. So, yeah, there may be questions about feedback on this, but if we pass the bylaw and we do the public awareness campaign, they're still going to ask those same questions. So either way the bylaw passes, I think this just gives communications a month to be able to proactively develop that, get signs up where needed, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think it's prudent to delay the enforcement of it till January 1.
Councillor Danlick?
Thank you, Your Worship. So at what point would you be looking for a amendment motion to make it effective January 1 at this point, or a later point? I'm prepared to make that motion if you're looking for one at this point.
Well, it's about to be, yeah. So is there, my next question was, seeing no further comments, was, is there a member of council willing to move an amendment to section 7 to add paragraph D come into force on January 1st, 2020? Councillor Danlick, are you prepared to do that? All right, so just to be clear on what we're doing now, is we're talking about to vote on the amendment as to whether or not we're going to add it to the bylaw. This is not second reading. Okay, so discussion on the motion. Councillor Stout, yes, no? Councillor Barnhart.
I will not be voting for the amendment for the reason I've already said. I think we're opening ourselves up to more input and consultation, and I think if this is the direction council wants to go in, we should pass it tonight to take effect immediately with an education component.
Further discussion on the motion, Councillor Margot Swain.
Yeah, I'd encourage my fellow councillors to put themselves in a scenario where the potential is there for someone to get a fine tomorrow without us having a chance to promote the fact that this bylaw is out there and once it's passed. So I think giving us a month is prudent. In no way are we seeking feedback. We've done an extensive amount of feedback, as Councillor Van Nieuwkerk mentioned there. But if you play it out in a real-time scenario, I'd hate for someone to be walking their dog and potentially getting a fine without a good public awareness campaign around it. So I'd encourage folks to vote for this motion.
Further discussion on the motion? Okay, you see none. All in favor of the amendment? Councillor Danlick, Councillor Stout? That carries 6-1. The amendment is added to the effect. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Danlick.
So move, Your Worship. Second reading. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. I had another question. But,
okay, sorry. You're right. I didn't get back to you. Please go ahead.
So, through Your Worship to Chief Cook. All right. Sorry, let me collect my thoughts. A concern was expressed to council by the organisers of the Beaumont Blues and Roots Festival that regarding the provision of a separate smoking area at the Blues and Roots Festival, which is at a public event in a public park. As far as I could see, reading through the bylaw, section 4A2 covers that, where it says that unless an exception applies under this bylaw, no person may engage in smoking on the grounds of a outdoor public event except in the area specifically reserved for smoking by the proprietor of the outdoor public event. Yes. Is that correct? Or does that mean that Blues and Roots Festival can continue to have a designated smoking area for smokers if they so wish?
To Councillor Stout, through Your Worship, yes.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Sure.
So, hypothetically, I'm sorry to walk you down this road again, but I just want to understand exactly how this works. Hypothetically, if I have the Beaumont Shakespeare Festival in Four Seasons Park and I want to designate a smoking area, how does that happen? Who approves or denies approval for that?
Excellent. To Councillor Stout, through Your Worship, and to all the council, the permit process within the city engages multiple departments for input. So, for example, if the Shakespeare Festival was to come to town or an event was being held, a permit would be requested through the city, which would then be evaluated by community services, protective services, and a number of different service areas, which would consider what impacts that would have to the city, what needs and what services they would require. Those areas, those service areas, then would provide comment back until such time as either all questions were satisfied. So if I had a question, for example, how many attendees, would there be Shakespeare, would there be swords? I don't know. I may ask those questions from a protective services standpoint. Once those are all satisfied, then that permit or that activity or festivity could go ahead. Now, with that as well, though, is the fact that if tents are being erected, if there's areas being cordoned off for smoking areas, for example, or if there was going to be a beer gardens, for example, there's also a building codes component as well, which takes into account the size of the tent, the fire code requirements and such, and there's also an inspection process. So in answering your question, the process to have a designated smoking area provided at a festival at Four Seasons Park would be through an application to the city, after review by all departments, providing that all concerns from those service areas of the City of Beaumont were satisfied, then that permit would be approved. It's no different than the Blues and Roots Festival today or the city celebration event that took place earlier this year.
So, and there's no reason then, the bylaw does not affect then the granting or the refusal of approval for a designated smoking area at such a festival, because there's an exclusion that allows this.
Right. Councillor Stout, through your worship? Yes. I believe I answered your question.
Yes, I worded it badly. The bylaw doesn't have any effect on whether or not you would grant a smoking area. Similarly, I'm not obliged to have a smoking area if in my festival if I don't want one.
Certainly, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just one other comment, if I may.
Sure.
Which is that, yes, I want to echo the comments of the other councillors regarding the level of public consultation to make sure that we got this right, and that people had the chance to provide feedback. I'm very much in favour of this bylaw, because not only for the reason stated that it keeps harmful smoking materials away from youth and the vulnerable, but also because it prevents the modelling of harmful smoking behaviours to youth and impressionable persons, and I think that's absolutely desirable and essential in contemporary society. So I'm very much in favour of this bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, and appreciate the amendment to add it, change it to January 1. I think administration heard the intent from council around a public campaign. Obviously, we're not going to put anything in the bylaw that speaks to that, but I just want to be clear that is the expectation of council. That is why we are asking it for January 1, so that communications has time to prepare, 7 days to be able to prepare this type of information. So I just wanted to be clear that that is why we did that, and so there's no reading between the lines. So if there's any clarification from administration on that, thank you.
All right, getting back to second reading. Further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of second reading? That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading this evening? Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of third reading? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Which brings us to Bylaw 962-19, Cemetery Bylaw, first reading.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Administration this evening is seeking first reading for a Bylaw 962-19 Cemetery Bylaw. The background on this, there was a previous cemetery bylaw, 30388, which expired in 1997. St. Columbia Church had been operating the cemetery under that, the expired bylaw at that time, and then the town took back the control of the administration and the operations of the cemetery in 1998. And Community Services is now responsible for administration operation of the cemetery. And we've been looking at operations there and how we're managing the cemetery. And the bylaw was something that was missing. So that's why we're here this evening. The cemetery is basically administered by Community Services with in cooperation with operations, which does kind of the opening and the closing of the burial plots. We've also added a columbarium this year. So there's a few things that need to be modernized with the operations of the cemetery, and a bylaw is just one more piece in that puzzle, and that's what we have before you this evening. I'm not going to read the entire bylaw, obviously, Your Worship. It touches on liabilities, operations, there's some offenses, and brings us close to the bylaw.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you not reading the entire bylaw tonight. I'm assuming council has done its homework. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading tonight? Councillor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. Oops, sorry. Discussion on the motion? Yes. Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, Your Worship. Similar to the suggestion by Councilman Nickard earlier this evening, could this also have second through reading this evening if council so chooses to? Sure. I see no reason to delay it for anything I can think of, unless council has other concerns.
I have no problem asking the questions and seeing if council has support as we go forward. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, through your Worship to Mr. Suter. Just quickly, why do I need this bylaw? Why do we need this bylaw? What would happen if we didn't pass this bylaw that would be harmful?
Through your Worship to Councillor Stout, I won't speak to if it would be harmful or not. This is an administrative bylaw for the most part. There are some offenses that you'll see towards the end of it there,
yes,
which could be enforced if need be. That would give municipal enforcement, for example, some tools if there was an incident out there that was not to our liking. That would be contrary to the bylaw, as well as it makes it transparent in how we operate the bylaw, both administratively and operation-wise.
Thank you. Supplementary, just walk just a little further down that road. So then, is there a belief that those offences are already occurring, or is this a hypothetical?
Through your Worship to Councillor Stout, no, I'm not saying that. We looked at numerous other municipalities, 12 to be exact, and what they have in place, and they all have bylaws in place. As well, we looked at the Provincial Cemeteries Act, which is aligned with this bylaw, and it's just one more tool to strengthen the operations both for today and for the future. Should we expand the cemetery or add another cemetery, whatever happens in the future. So it's just one more tool that we would want.
So this is a regulatory administrative thing to make sure that we are.
That's correct.
That we have the necessary provisions in place.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Newkirk.
Thank you, through your Worship, to the presenter. One piece of information I didn't see in there, is there such a way to anticipate the lifespan of the cemetery, as in how much physical room is there before we would need to think about allocating more space for more cemetery? Thank you.
Through your Worship to Councillor Van Kirk. Yes, if Council recalls, the Heritage Society has been tasked with looking at doing a cemetery study.
Okay.
So that work has already begun. I'm expecting to see a draft of that hopefully in December this year. That will looking at that stuff, both what space is available today, and as well as the future, what is the feasibility of adding on to that area or in another location. I will add that the addition of the columbarium this year has also provided other options to residents, and that should prolong the life of that space just because people may choose that as an option.
Thank you. Yeah, I did notice that study was underway, and happy to hear that's part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further request for discussion, all in favor of first reading of Bylaw 937-19? That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council this evening willing to move second reading? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of second reading of Bylaw 962-19? That carries unanimously. If council wishes to proceed to third reading, we need unanimous consent. I move that council provide unanimous consent to move to third reading this evening. Discussion on the motion. Sorry, discussion on the motion. All in favor? Okay, carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading of Bylaw 962-19? Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you. Third reading.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much for your time this evening. All right, which brings us to item number 10, councillor inquiries and reports. So we'll start out with councillor inquiries. Do members of council have questions for administration this evening? Seeing none, is there a member of council wishing to make a statement this evening? No. CEO's update, item 11. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. A couple quick items. I know we want to move into in camera. Just wanted to let the public know that on November 18th, the Beaumont Council hosted a joint council meeting with Leduc County. Some of the topics discussed included joint strategies for sustainable tax base, future cost share opportunities, some joint economic development strategies for business attraction and retention. We talked about a couple of fire services opportunities as well. In addition, and this may have been said already, our Cooperative Business Incubator Center opened, I believe, November 12th. It's been open for a couple of weeks now, so I urge you to stop by and have a look. It's also the new home of the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce. It's a pretty interesting model you've got going on there. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, CEO. Are there any notices of motion this evening from members of council? Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, notice of motion. And I'll just read it out the way I've got it typed. That the committee of the whole meeting format be replaced with a regular council meeting format, including meeting start times. And I'll provide our clerk with the documents. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion from a member of council to move into closed session? Councillor Stout.
I move that we move into closed session, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. All in favor? That carries unanimously. We'll take 5 while we reset the room.